Welcome to the Everyone is a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell.
Hey, I met you. You are not cool.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
Stick around.
Visit us at IHateCritics.net. We're also at everyoneIsACriticPodcast.com. We're on Facebook at Everyone is a Critic. Our Twitter and Instagram handle is CriticsPod. There you can participate in our top fives and watch trailers and all the movie news that comes out for the week, which there was none this week because we're wrapping it up and we haven't paid attention. At least I haven't paid attention. Maybe something happened, but I don't know.
Well, I didn't defend Justice League on Twitter, but I did call out, and I know it's stupid to say that because they're so much bigger than we are, but the Hollywood Reporter put out their list of the worst movies of 2017, and they ranked Justice League number 7. And I basically think that anybody who thinks that Justice League is one of the 10 worst movies of the year didn't see enough movies. And that led to a challenge where somebody asked me to name 30 worst movies. So I did. I named 30 movies that came out this year that were actually worse than Justice League, if you don't mind.
And they are.
Indulging me. Transformers The Last Night, The Mummy, Baywatch, King Arthur Legend of the Sword, How to Be a Latin Lover, Unforgettable, The Circle, The Smurfs, The Lost Village, Just Getting Started, The Case for Christ, Life, The Belko Experiment, Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, Underworld Blood Wars, Collide, Rock Dog, 50 Shades Darker, Rings, Chips, Table 19, Resident Evil The Final Chapter, Flatliners, Pottersville, which if you haven't heard about Pottersville, oh my god, Pottersville is amazing. Free Fire, which I know most people like, I don't. The Emoji Movie, Bye Bye Man, Sleepless, and the worst movie of 2017 is Blind, starring Alec Baldwin and Demi Moore. I nearly had an aneurysm trying to follow that movie. Pottersville, in fact, just a moment. Pottersville is a Christmas comedy about Michael Shannon and furries.
Well, this became interesting all of a sudden.
It is a PG-13 comedy featuring not only Michael Shannon, but also Christina Hendricks, Ron Perlman, Thomas Lennon, and Ian McShane. And it's about the search for Bigfoot after Michael Shannon gets blackout drunk, dresses up as Bigfoot, and wanders through his town. And everybody thinks they saw Bigfoot. He does this because his wife, played by Christina Hendricks, is having a furry affair with Ron Perlman, who is his best friend.
It kind of sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I heard about this on Instagram because Ron Perlman was like sharing what critics were saying about it, horrible things, and saying, "I'm telling you, this is the best movie of the year." Because I guess his production company put it out.
Oh, really? Wow. Stand by your movie, man. Good for you. It's terrible. It's really awful. It's hard to watch. That description is the best you're going to get. So try and sit through it. You're going to have an experience like I did watching Blind.
Oh, really? It's more like that, less.
It's hard to watch.
Gotcha. Well, that's no fun. I have flirted with clicking on it, but I have yet to actually do it. Instead, I watched that Will Smith movie.
You watched that?
Oh, right.
I haven't watched that.
Neither have I.
I've heard bad things. I heard that it's not like bad in a fun way. That's what because if I was going to watch a bad movie that I figure is bad, especially one that's on Netflix and I'm not required to see, it's got to be fun bad as opposed to just bad.
I wouldn't really say it's either one. It's kind of its own thing. It's weird.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's basically a buddy cop movie, but with trolls and elves and fairies. And
Works. Yeah.
I heard Will Smith, all of his dialogue, somebody said all of his dialogue was just him berating his partner.
Pretty much. But I don't know. I wouldn't. It's just a typical buddy cop movie with just these weird things with it. So I don't know. People are probably paying more attention to it because it's on Netflix. But if it were in the theater, it'd just be a forgettable action movie.
Josh and I have both seen Alien Nation, so I don't think we need to see this.
That's a real solid comparison already.
How do you know?
Wow. Well, the word alien
I know
in the
pretty
title has nothing to do with James Caan, I can tell you that. But we'll come upon that next year when it turns 30. But yeah, that's excellent. Well done. And I just looked at that title this week in compiling the 88 movies and didn't even think about that comparison. Yeah. Buddy cop movie involving aliens.
Yeah, so I mean, I would just say it's more forgettable. The fact that it's on Netflix is giving it more attention to the bad side.
And Max Landis is giving it some attention, too.
Oh, there he goes again.
He's the writer, and he's been accused of some kind of harassment.
Oh.
Yeah.
All of his movies are misunderstood, though, so he probably is, too.
Until the whole harassment thing, he was really fun to watch on YouTube. Now, not so much.
But this week's episode is going to be pretty... It's not going to be a normal episode. We don't really have any 87 movies, but we, time permitting, will go into a top 10 there. We're going to talk about 3.5 newish movies and then go through our top 10 movies of the year. So let's go ahead and get started with The Shape of Water.
Yes, Guillermo del Toro's movie, Shape of Water, with... now her name would run out of my mind.
Sally Hawkins.
Thank you, Sally Hawkins. One of two brilliant performances that she's had this year. A movie called Maudie earlier this year that I caught with her and Ethan Hawke is pretty incredible, too. But this is a love story between a woman and a fish man. And Guillermo del Toro obviously knows how to direct a weird movie. He's directed plenty of weird movies like Pan's Labyrinth, so he's got a pretty good handle on this. Michael Shannon in this, far better than Pottersville. Probably more memorable. He plays a real nasty guy. He's an FBI agent who brings this thing to this facility in Maryland, and she happens to be one of the people cleaning there, along with Octavia Spencer. One of the things that bothered me about this movie and why this movie is not in my top 10, and it's really not even close to one of my favorite movies of the year, is that... and it's a stupid little niggling logic thing, but she gets so much time alone in that lab with this thing that is the most important thing in the entire Cold War right at this moment that I just kind of like, how is she getting this much time alone with the fish guy? How is nobody watching this guy all the time if it's that important that the Russians are trying to sneak in and steal it or kill it, and Michael Shannon's entire job is riding on it, yet he lets this thing alone for hours on end? She gets endless amount of time with this thing, and that bothered me. I couldn't, like, with all the other good things in the movie, I couldn't get past that. Just this one little niggling detail that just held me back about the entire film. That said, I mean, I did write on for our website that there's a scene in this movie that is the best scene of 2017, and in terms of staging, direction, acting, absolutely it is. So the dance scene. The fantasy dance sequence in this movie, I think, is the best scene of any movie in 2017. I'll stand by that. Even as I don't love this movie, I do love that scene.
Very curious. I'm predisposed to dislike this because of the similarity of Guillermo del Toro's films. And you stated he directed a lot of weird movies. There's weird, and then there's also a guy's imagination spilling onto the screen, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I think I've probably been too harsh on him and not... critical or praiseworthy enough. This to me is like the culmination of Pan's Labyrinth is a better film, and I really like that. But this is just a shade under that for me. It's a fantasy movie. It's also a little gory. It's also following Michael Shannon's character, who's just out of his mind and out of his gourd. To that extent, him missing such a simple detail almost works for the character for me, because he's so intent on his time when he's with the creature that he's in control, and he's in control of everything. Well, of course he would miss out on this one little thing. He doesn't have enough respect for Sally Hawkins' character, who doesn't speak, but she can hear, to even worry about her until it is far gone in the plot for him to worry about it.
I'm not saying he's necessarily has her to worry about. I mean, he's worried about the Russians.
Yeah, correct. What I mean is that in terms of how this, how I'm getting by that, I'm letting it slide because it seems to make sense for the character that he's playing. But the visuals in this, where he came close on Crimson Peak, that movie is supposed to be a visual feast. It was close, but also there was just a little too much murkiness, a little too much darkness. This is extremely colorful and set in a period of time where I was thinking 40s, 50s, 60s. It had to be 50s or 60s if we're talking Cold War here. It just looks right. Everything, the production design to the cinematography to the ethereal scenes, it all looks wonderful. In fact, I'd say it's the best looking film of the year. And that's a hard balance to get when you're Guillermo del Toro and you've directed blockbusters like Pacific Rim and smaller films like Pan's Labyrinth, but that you can't see really well on purpose. This was a hard balance to reach, and especially with tone of the film, which is very crisp and almost light, despite some of the very serious things happening in here. And including, I found it to be amusing, not because I view female masturbation as amusing, but Sally Hawkins' character has a specific routine, and I thought, I liked it to the point where her character is so alone in certain ways that she has a routine to pleasure herself. Okay, that's great to me. I started to enjoy it when I saw it on screen, not just for the nudity.
And to the point there, when people discuss that and think maybe that might be gratuitous, it's not. It's not. That he sets that up specifically so that later on during the sex scenes that come up later, that you're already inured, you're already in that far where we've established female nudity, we've established this world where with that level of what we're doing here in R-rated film, and so it's a way of bringing the audience along on that.
Sure. Creature of the Black Lagoon, a love story, but told very well, and to the point where I found myself coming out of my Del Toro shell and feeling that it's better than it should be. But please, go ahead.
You just did the elevator pitch.
The elevator pitch? What did I do?
Creature from the Black Lagoon, the love story.
Ooh. Well, it can be a musical next.
The executive in the elevator.
No executives are listening to our show. Otherwise, we'd be famous by now because clearly our talent level, podcasting wise. Bob,
I don't really have much more to add. It's the best looking movie. I agree completely. The performances are amazing. That dance sequences is phenomenal. I didn't have the same problem Sean did, largely because it's not like they're in a facility that's heavily guarded, and she's just a cleaning person. And they do have kind of a throwaway line that don't. But I didn't, so it didn't bother me too much. But I get it. It just didn't bother me. But otherwise, I mean, it's my favorite love story of the year, even more so than Call Me by Your Name, I think. But I'm kind of splitting hairs between the two of them because they're so very different yet so similar in the fact that they're both love stories. But I don't know. I think everybody should go see it because it's surprisingly watchable and it's not homework. I don't know. It's right up there with Pan's Labyrinth, but like I'm with Josh, shade down.
Yeah. And it's an Alexander Desplat score. If you know who I'm speaking of, he's the most prolific composer going right now, and this is a score of his that I didn't want to throw things at the screen for because it's really beautiful and matches the story. Most of the time, he completely misses the tone of the film or it's completely immemorable. And I pay attention to score, I think, more than the three of us do as a whole. That really draws me in. I grew up on scores like from John Williams and whatnot. That was my bread and butter. So here, it makes sense. The whole thing is wrapped together in a nice, tight package. And so I think I should shut up going forward about Del Toro and everything looking the same. It doesn't really.
Good.
I do recommend it. I just don't love it.
Right. Molly's Game.
Molly's Game, yes. Aaron Sorkin directing Jessica Chastain in a true story about a woman named Molly Bloom who was a champion skier, and then down the line she becomes the poker princess, as they call her on Us Weekly. She doesn't call herself that. She gets raided by the FBI. She ends up getting arrested, essentially, and she's got to go in front of a judge, and she needs a lawyer. So she picks Idris Elba as her eighth choice, and he decides to take her case. And well-told story, good solid performances. Aaron Sorkin as a director is a little bit off. He's it's the first time. I can't be too hard on him, but it's not crisp. And without a director, without a Fincher there to guide him, I think he does let some of his Aaron Sorkinisms slip in a little bit too much. Sorkin is great when he's got a great director who is kind of guiding him and cutting him off where he needs to get cut off, and where everything doesn't end up looking like The West Wing, where it's little character ticks just coming into each and every scene. There are a number of lovely scenes in this movie, like with Jessica Chastain and Kevin Costner have an amazing scene late in the movie. I think Idris Elba is let down by this direction and this script. I think he's a fine actor, and I think he gives a good performance here. But I think once you establish a character like him as being serious and to the point, then you have him doing shtick at a certain point. That bothered me to no end. There's a scene in this movie that just irritated the hell out of me to the point where I wrote my entire review about that scene, because it's just such a silly bit of business. It's so unnecessary and so very Sorkin that it made the rest of the movie stand out, and the little Sorkinisms stand out. Chris O'Dowd's character is like a Sorkin wet dream of a character, and for that, I'm kind of in the middle on this movie.
I didn't read this review of yours. What scene specifically are you referring to?
The courtroom scene where he keeps switching seats and going back and asking her stupid questions.
Yeah. It makes sense when you say it. But then he also has a scene in a room with Molly and the prosecution team that's really powerful and strong. And boy, it certainly speaks to me as a guy that has a lot of distrust for the government. I mean, in the end, what happens? That's what they should have done all along. And instead, she's got her funds seized, and they're going to tax her funds while they've got them, and they're going to raid her place, just her. Never known to be somebody that's armed before, but they're going to raid her place with a bunch of machine guns and a ton of people in the middle of the night. Okay, ridiculous. There's a Sorkinism to this that, of course, I'm attracted to, always am, and the cadence works most of the time. I think as a director, what he's not doing is fitting his writing to cinematic scenes. On television, most of the time, The West Wing, people are walking. And so when they've got the Sorkin cadence, it matches what the camera is trying to do as well. And in this case, Elba and Chastain in his office are going back and forth so quickly, and it seemed out of place to the point where I stopped thinking about it and just tried to really focus in with my ears. What are they saying? What are they saying? It was a little bothersome. Overall, though, it's a good movie that I would recommend, but it's not going to be near my top 10 list. Performances are fine. There's just a little something missing. I think we've hit on it even with the trailer that it was going to be does this work with a first-time director type of thing. And in just a smidge, the film is a bit too proud on Molly Bloom. This is a woman that, yes, was a businesswoman and one heck of a strong one at that, and built a particular business very well and attracted the right kind of people. She's clearly intelligent and deserves a lot of credit for the good things that she did, but at the same time, she can't possibly be surprised that what she did was going to attract the wrong attention at some point.
Well, and especially the way they treat her drug use, too, is just kind of brushing over that. Let's not pay too much attention to that.
I was on drugs. Okay, well, that's illegal, honey. I mean, that bugged me quite a bit, but I know that's not what the film is focusing on.
For somebody who's supposed to be as intelligent as she is to start using cocaine, I mean, that's not a very intelligent move.
It's hard enough to stay focused as it is.
They did kind of establish that she was running on fumes there at one point,
Sure.
And so it was almost a necessity to stay. She was not thinking, and it was definitely a dark point. And I guess they brushed over, but it was because she owned it. If she wasn't owning it, then they wouldn't have to brush over. So I don't know. It didn't bother me that much. That said, if you had Fincher directing it, maybe it's an Academy Award-winning movie. But I think it's just kind of
a number of different directors who can just rein him in a little bit.
But otherwise, it ends up just being kind of a watchable movie. But he's had several of those as a writer. That is, A Few Good Men's. I wouldn't throw that up as one of the best movies of any
Reiner's
year.
not a great director either,
right? But even at the worst, you're going to get a watchable, entertaining movie out of them, no matter who directs it, probably. So
Yeah, this is by no means a terrible movie. It's just not a great movie.
no, it's certainly very watchable, and I think it's the kind of movie that people who don't watch a lot of movies will think is amazing.
On the level of A Few Good Men, that
Right.
it's some people's like favorite film.
Which A Few Good Men's fun. I love it, but
Yes.
I would kind of put this with that, maybe slightly below it. But I had fun watching it, and it made me wonder who was who, and kind of figure out that Michael Cera is really Tobey Maguire. And
Oh, really? See, I was trying to do the same thing too, but thank you. Wow.
well, she actually named him in their book. So
Oh,
Did she?
look at you doing research.
I kind of want to read her book. But Ben Affleck was named in it too. And Tobey Maguire didn't kill the game like he does in the movie, but he was the one to let her know or whatever. I don't know.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. And plus, I like poker a lot, so I'm bound to like this movie more. I mean, I like Rounders, and Rounders isn't good by any means either. Anything else?
This film even made Kevin Costner act well. So, I mean, in terms of performances, there's nothing that leaves you short except for perhaps an Idris Elba scene that seems out of place. Costner doesn't often give this type of performance.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to the Sorkinisms, more or less, they were just kind of throwaway for me. They didn't stick with me. But, I mean, I think we're all kind of on the same page. This is just
sure.
a watchable movie. The Florida Project.
The Florida Project. This goes well beyond just watchable. This is an incredible movie. This is about a Florida hotel that is something of a project, if you will. It's a place where a lot of people stay for as long as they can, for as cheap as they can. They turn this hotel into their home, even though they're not supposed to. And it's just basically just a couple days in the life of these kids who are running around, and the mother who's also kind of a kid, and Willem Dafoe, who's the de facto father figure of it all. Sean Baker directed this. He's the director of Tangerine. There isn't much to describe in terms of plot. This is just a movie that just keeps moving and constantly moving and observing lives in progress, and specifically the lives of these children who are absolutely incredible, just so very, very watchable. And I've complained in the past about movies that use children in a specific way because, like, if you go back, there's a movie called Swordfish with John Travolta and Vince Vaughn. It's a
we remember.
And Halle Berry.
Right.
We remember.
No, I'm thinking of Domestic Disturbance. Sorry.
Oh.
This is going way back.
I hate that movie.
Yeah, it's terrible because there are movies like that created this whole genre of a child in peril, and that's the cheapest thing that a director or screenwriter can do is put a child in trouble because it automatically forces you to feel something as opposed to actually organically building to that. Sean Baker doesn't do that. He organically builds towards you caring about what's going on with these children, where they're going, who's taking care of them, who's supposed to be watching them. And by the end of it, I mean, it's impossible. It was impossible for me to hold back tears. I was just that final scene is devastating, and I love this movie.
It's pretty magnificent, isn't it? I got a little surprised about where it went. Watching the trailer isn't necessarily indicative of what the film is going to be like, and in fact, I saw it as more of a coming-of-age story just by watching the trailer, with Willem Dafoe serving as something of a wise man guiding the children towards a proper direction. No, it's a difficult film to watch. The main two characters, Haley and her daughter Monique, the dynamic between those two is very interesting in that you think at certain times that she's just the worst mother in the world because there are reasons for that, but also what she does serves a particular purpose. And so I'm on the edge at all time during this movie, wondering, do I hate this character? Do I not hate this character? How badly do I feel for the kids? Or at some point, do they need to have some kind of responsibility for their actions? The film makes you actually think about what is really going on in the world as opposed to glossing over something that has real circumstance to it. And this will put you right in the thick of real life. That being said, I don't think I ever want to watch it again. as good as it is, because it did make my top 10 for the year, as good as it is, boy, it's hard to watch. Brooklyn Prince is the young actress that plays Monique. I have no problem if she would win an Oscar for her performance. I mean, she's that good. I think it's so difficult to direct children to that performance because they don't, and the children themselves have to be incredibly bright to see what they need to do without necessarily absorbing it or understanding it. That's such a fine line to walk on. And therefore, this movie is even more incredible because of all of the kids' performances, not just Monique, but for sure her. Yeah,
the kids are fantastic. It was... This is in my top 10 too as well. And he did kind of what Scorsese does, where he takes characters that people that just kind of generalize would say are bad people you don't like, and he doesn't judge them, but then kind of makes you live through their shoes. And basically, you're either disappointed or you feel sorry. You know, you're somewhere there. You're not hating or loving. You're just kind of, you know, you're almost affected by their decisions too. And man, the kids are just phenomenal. I don't know. This is such a good movie. It makes me, I don't know, you know when like a celebrity gets famous but they had a hard childhood, and then they'll be like, we were poor but we didn't know we were. You know, you kind of get that sense from those kids that they had no idea how bad they have it. They were just enjoying life, and it also kind of makes you wonder, you know, it doesn't really matter how much money you have. At some point when you're happy, you're at your total, you know, you can only be so happy. Money can't make or break that. And so it would just, I don't know, it just kind of all around kind of the perfect movie, and probably the biggest achievement directing wise. Just the fact that those kids, all of them, were so phenomenal. And from a technical standpoint, the direction, think of the scenes where Monique is asked to take a bath. The film is not gratuitous. Let's not go there, okay? I'm not talking about that at all. What I mean is you see specific numbers of scenes with her taking a bath, and you wonder, is her mom doing what I think that she's doing? And then I start to get mad at her. But give the film time, and you can start to hear something in the background that indicates that that's not what she's doing, that she's doing something different. But it's necessary to set up with no audible sound going on in the background that scene so that later it affects you more. Directing wise, I think that's an excellent choice to make you again immersed in the character, wondering if you hate them or if you think they're just doing the only thing that they can do to get by. Boy, and Willem Dafoe, we haven't really talked about him quite yet. He's so good in this, but there's so many other good supporting performances this year that I have a hard time saying it's the best of the year. Yeah. But as a dude like him, being the one to be the protector of the innocents is an interesting casting choice too, because we generally see him as the creepy guy or whatnot. So countercasting in a way that it just works beautifully. I think this is the best I've ever seen him.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you make Shape of Water 10 years ago, you make it with Willem Dafoe, don't you?
Absolutely.
He's so incredible in this. I mean, because again, you don't see him as that big soft-hearted guy who's gonna try and pinch the rules a little bit, so you know, put your stuff in this room while you got to get out for a night so you don't get kicked out completely, and negotiating on their behalf, and keeping an eye out for the kids when they're at the pool and some creep is wandering around, which is a pretty incredible scene. And it's so quiet. It's not overstated. It's not I'm going to kick your ass. It's get the fuck out of here, please. Just go. I know where you're here. You're horrible. Go away. I loved that scene. It's amazing. He's amazing.
I love just about every scene, even kind of the fantasy ending that was kind of cool too. I don't want to say everybody should go see it, because there's certain people I don't want to see it because they just wouldn't get it. But it's not like an arty homework movie. It's definitely watchable, and it's really, I think people will enjoy it quite a bit. Molly's Game's probably the easiest to watch of the three movies this week, but probably the best all-around movie of the three, I guess.
Oh yeah,
it's hard to
absolutely.
Where are we at with time? We're at a half hour. Want to do a catch-up movie?
Sure.
Last Flag Flying.
Last Flag Flying is actually a sequel to a movie called The Last Detail with Jack Nicholson. Unofficially a sequel. I mean, it picks up the same similar characters from the similar story about a guy who is picking up his son who is killed in Iraq. He wants to pick up his body and bring him back home. And he turns to his Vietnam friends to do that, or people he assumed were his friends, I guess. Bryan Cranston and Lawrence Fishburne. He tracks them down. They reminds him of who he is, and then they go on this road trip. And I tell you, for the first 30 minutes of this movie, I thought I was really going to hate this. It was really bothering me. Bryan Cranston was so freaking obnoxious in the first 30 minutes of this movie. I wanted to turn it off, but I stuck with it. And what starts to happen is that it morphs from what appeared to be kind of a mainstream comedy into a real Richard Linklater movie, which was what I was hoping for. I was hoping I was watching a real Richard Linklater movie and not Bad News Bears. When he goes mainstream, he tends to, other than maybe School of Rock, he tends to go in the wrong direction. But he picked the right direction here. This is a really solid movie. It becomes very entertaining. It becomes quite moving, especially at the end. And I do highly recommend it. It's not in my top 10, but it's outside.
Yeah, it's right on the brink for me. I don't know that I would say... I never really thought it was a blockbuster Richard Linklater. From the get-go, I kind of figured, with the cast, it looks like it should be. But I was kind of thinking Everybody Wants Some, or, Boyhood, that type of movie. And I liked it way more than I thought I would. It reminded me of, seeing friends from high school or college that I don't see, and then just getting back in touch with them, and all of a sudden everything's the way it was. You can fight like you did then. You can get along. And he captured that as well as probably better than I've ever seen caught in a movie, specifically between Cranston and Fishburne. Their chemistry it's like they were real life friends forever, and I was really impressed by that. And Steve Carell he's just kind of quiet guy in the corner. He's not really, doesn't have much to do in this movie.
It's a very understated performance,
which you would not expect from Steve. But no, I normally, I don't know. Sometimes I can't stand movies like that are just don't really have a story, just kind of people living in an experience. So this one does have a story, but it's just your experience this week for these guys, or weekend, or whatever it is. And I found it really enjoyable. It's kind of long, but I loved every minute of it. So go see The Last Flag Flying. Go see everything this week, apparently. That's what happens in late December. Should we move on to our top 10s?
Sure.
All right, who wants to go first?
Should we do the rotation thing?
Sure. Let me go first and with my number 10, because I had a hard time doing a number 10. Because there's 3 movies on the brink. For me, it's like Wonder, Last Flag Flying, and then Colossal. For 3 totally different reasons. Wonder, I went to the theater not expecting to get what I got. And I probably like it more than I should. So that's why I bumped it down.
Which one was that?
Wonder.
Oh, good. Yeah.
That's why I bumped it down so low. It probably doesn't deserve to be a top 10 movie, but it really did catch me off guard. Last Flag Flying, it reminded me of me and my friends, even though I have nothing to do with the Marine Corps. But I just loved the chemistry between the guys. Like I said, and Colossal was such an original movie that it's kind of been forgotten about because it came out so early. But I think people should go see that movie because that was a hidden gem early on in the year.
Yeah, Colossal's right outside my top 10. It was right on the brink I'll just throw in a couple, Song to Song, Terrence Malick. The Killing of a Sacred Deer is right on the outside of mine. Mudbound as well.
Yeah.
Thor Ragnarok. The Beguiled. Maudie, and which I mentioned earlier with Sally Hawkins. And Blade Runner 2049. Just right outside my top 10. My number 10 was Wind River. Taylor Sheridan's movie starring Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. And that powerhouse statistic at the end that made me cry.
Bob, what was your number 10? What was the one you actually picked?
I have Wonder
okay.
in there, but
I was just curious. I didn't quite catch on to the one that you selected.
I was kind of cheating, and I had all 3 of them there, but Wonder was the first one.
Fair enough. In terms of ones that just were outside of the purvey of my top 10. I didn't see as many movies as even Bob this year in terms of theater releases.
First time ever.
This year I got a life. How about that? I mean that in I mean that in the nicest possible way because it can be construed differently. No, I thought Split, for example, is one that I liked so much because of what it did for me, even with the spoilage before I went into it. I liked that so much. Logan, I liked that a lot, but it's kind of, it can't be considered like a top 10 of the year. It's just something I was pleasantly surprised by. It Comes at Night is just outside of there. Mother is just outside of there, mainly because of how challenged me to wonder what in the world is going on. And also Murder on the Orient Express. As mainstream of a film as that is, I found myself so immensely immersed in Hercule Poirot, or however you say his name. I mean, they're so...
Branagh directed the hell out of that movie.
Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, they're considering making an Agatha Christie like cinematic universe now because of how well that film did and how well it was received. I'm, for one, very excited about the fact that he's at least coming back to do another one. But my actual number 10 is The Shape of Water. I can't believe that I'm saying that because I didn't expect that going in, but it took hold of me, and therefore it demands to be above all those I just mentioned.
And which makes my number 9, The Shape of Water. I don't know. It was my favorite love story of the year.
The Shape of Water is not on my list, as I mentioned, but fine movie. My number 9 is Wonder Woman. Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot did incredible things. That World War I scene where she crawls out of the trench and just, I mean, that's incredible. That's one of the best scenes of the year. That would be right behind the Shape of Water dance scene, obviously, is the best scene in any movie this year. Wonder Woman's incredible. I don't care about it being a blockbuster or a comic book movie. I care about the fact that it's exceptionally directed, beautifully acted, and has a terrific ending.
I'm so excited that a superhero movie, let alone a DC movie, is in your top 10. It's written in stone, ladies and gentlemen. Wait, you've already gone. Yes. Yeah. Okay. My number 9 is It. Oddly enough, I think that the reason that it is because I had no familiarity with it before going to the theater, and being jaw-droppingly terrified in the first 5 to 10 minutes. And it did, I mean, nothing matched that, okay? I had no idea what was coming, and then what happens, and then all of a sudden I'm on the edge of my seat. But as a theater experience, that is so valuable to me. Yes, it apes a lot of what Stranger Things had done in season 1, but then again, Stranger Things aped what it had done. So
I gotta say, I'm so happy I watched Stranger Things after I saw it.
Lo and behold, here I am thinking, oh, they written what? No. This was written a long ass time ago. But it never matches that first scene in terms of the rest of the movie. But it is a very, very good movie to me. And as a horror movie, I'm never drawn to consider something, the best of the year or anything like that. But as a whole, I walked out of the theater so satisfied and so surprised, and a couple of very memorable moments in this one make it something that's going to stick with me far more than some of the ones that I kept off of this list. Thus, it has to be on there.
Yeah, I think we all agreed that was a really great movie.
Yeah, I mean, the further I get away from it, the more I start to dislike. I'd say it's probably the 5th or 6th best horror movie of the year. But for a blockbuster horror movie, we haven't had one of those in a long time. A successful one like
True
it.
That.
And it truly was, for that level of a movie, that knocked it out of the park. My number 8 is Get Out. I feel like it would be a lot higher if I had seen it when I should have seen it. Just because I had listened to all the podcasts and I knew a lot about the movie before I saw it. I wish I could have kind of experienced it without knowing anything about it. And I feel like I missed out. But I'm sure we're going to get to it later on another list, but it is a phenomenal, original horror movie by a first-time director who you would never expect to make that kind of movie and then to do it as well as he did. And Jordan Peele, just an all-around home run for me.
We will talk about that again.
Yes, we will.
My number 8 is Call Me By Your Name, Luca Guadagnino, directing Armie Hammer and Timothy Chalamet, who's maybe going to win Best Actor. There's certainly a strong groundswell there, unless Gary Oldman makes a comeback, and it'd be very deserved. This is an incredible love story. It's it's a picture of young love. It captures this beautiful snapshot of young love, and regardless of whether it's a man and a man or not, it doesn't matter to me. It was beautiful. What that connection between these two characters is undeniable, and it's moving, and it's exceptionally directed. And Michael Stuhlbarg is incredible in it as the father, and all the performances are just pitch perfect. I mean, this movie, and of course, we had an amazing conversation about it on this show.
Yeah. It's easily my second favorite love story. and it's right on the brink, but that 10 to 15 range, I'm splitting hairs, even some of the ones that made the top 10.
My number 8 would be 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. If nothing else, even though the film didn't necessarily leave itself in a place where I was immensely satisfied, the performances in this film by Frances McDormand, Sam Rockwell, Woody Harrelson even, which I don't often say, and even smaller characters like Caleb Landry Jones and the replacement sheriff after Woody Harrelson dies. This is
spoiler alert.
Well, but the film opens up with him stating he has terminal brain cancer, roughly.
Yeah, so we don't know how he dies.
Okay, well, you can cut that if you want. I mean, no big deal.
Everybody's like, "What? I got to go see this movie now." We did a good job. Good job selling it. I like it.
Held up on the performances alone, it would need to be in the top 10 because they're so strong and not over the top. It's a revenge film in a way. It's also an examination of who people are, who they can become. Specifically Sam Rockwell. As a supporting actor, I'm going to sit here and say that Michael Stuhlbarg or Willem Dafoe are better performances, but it's kind of a toss-up because Rockwell has such an amazing arc in this film, and he pulls it off. As you stated on the film, if he doesn't get this right, then it rolls off the rails, which I agree. As a result, it's just so solid, but so I don't want to watch it again, that kind of thing. And I have to put it on this list, but... Yeah, that's kind of the theme of the year. There's no home run for me. There never was. And therefore, I'm talking about all these films without the level of enthusiasm that I might normally have. But if you love actors at the very top of their game, this is it right here.
There's a home run for me, and then there's a couple. And then everything else is like a triple, though. I mean, I don't think it's a bad year for movies. I just think there's a lot of movies that are on the same level. And that one is, I had a hard time deciding if that should make the list or not. Because, again, you could interchange that with pretty much any movie I'm going to say up until the last two. I'm with you on Sam Rockwell, too, in terms of performance. Number 7, is that where we're at?
Yes.
It Comes at Night. That was a fun week. Well, Krisha, and I'm probably bringing a little of that to this. But it's a similar movie, just in a totally different genre. It's not your typical horror movie. It makes you think. It makes you kind of live in their experiences more so than try to scare you. And I appreciated that about this movie. And it was just a wholly unique horror film. Maybe I should have had Get Out. I think that week on the podcast this is my number 2 movie for a long time, all year long. So It Comes at Night it's a movie everybody's going to go see and hate, but I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's always going to be a special one to me. That was the first theater movie I saw with my girlfriend now, and so therefore it's always got a gold star on it and everything. And that was a hell of a week. I mean, we were sitting here looking at each other and saying, are we doing this? For real, that was very memorable. One of the top 5 memorable moments I think that we've had on this show.
Absolutely.
John?
My number 7 is three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Can't really add much more than what Josh said, but I mean, it's such an angry, fiery, sharp movie. Martin McDonagh directs the hell out of it. Sam Rockwell's incredible, and in a great year for actresses. I mean, it's going to be hard to decide where that Best Actress goes between McDormand and Saoirse Ronan, even Gal Gadot.
Maybe just get rid of the best actor category and give them 10.
Call it a
There you
protest.
go.
There you go. That's a far better protest than guys wearing black to the Emmy Awards.
I will say, with that movie, before we move on to Josh, my brother texted me this morning, oddly enough, about Three Billboards, saying, this was a great first 3 episodes of a TV show. I wanted this to keep going. And he was kind of bummed that he didn't leave satisfied. He wanted more, I guess. So how would this work as a TV show? Thoughts?
To the executives apparently listening to us, yeah.
Sure, yes, I'm in.
We're at number 7, right?
Yes.
My number 7 is Baby Driver. Edgar Wright. The phrase that you guys use very well, directing the hell out of this movie. There are twists, there are turns, there's good character moments. It's cool. The action is very well done. Kevin Spacey, despite everything that came later, is like actually acting in this movie. I'll even admit that, having been kind of a supporter of his abilities over the past 15 years to an extent. And Ansel Elgort, he plays the lead really well. It's surprising because I saw him in a young adult film, and that being my first impression, I was thinking going into this, this is we needed to really stick a really pretty person in the lead. And no, he's got real talent here. There's some sweet moments too between him and is it Lily Collins?
Yeah.
Okay, that's his love interest in this film. The music is really great. Love the soundtrack to this movie. It's going to be one of those watch more than a lot of other films on this list as a result. And it was very popular. No surprise, I've got a popular movie on my list, but it's just so damn cool. I left the theater very satisfied that I hadn't been let down, and that Edgar Wright, post Marvel, snafu there, was able to make something that was his best film that he's ever made. So
yeah, I feel like the fact that I haven't seen it since the theater is the reason it didn't make mine, but because I loved the hell out of that movie too. Yeah. So I mean, all these movies I've seen since then, so it's just probably not fair to Baby Driver. Number 6, Wind River, just a cool theatrical experience alone.
Which one? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Wind River.
Oh yes, Wind River. Yes.
Being alone in the theater, just kind of, I don't know. That in the movie he wrote last year, Hell or High Water, just kind of caught me off guard, and I like this one a little more, I think. And then all of a sudden, leaving the theater and just getting pissed off, really. When a movie stays with you like this one did, which this probably did that more than any other movie did to me this year. Or I'm coming back home and I'm looking shit up and I'm just getting more and more mad and fighting with my father-in-law on Facebook. I don't know. It's a phenomenal movie. I think everybody who I had to see it has loved it. So it's really, really good. Go see it.
My number 6 is The Florida Project. We've talked about that. Sean Baker is incredible. You need to see this one. You need to see Tangerine. Challenging subjects, exceptionally well captured in his direction. The Florida Project is deeply moving and definitely a movie to see.
My number 6 is Blade Runner 2049. I think you guys are probably expecting me to have that a little higher based on
I was expecting Logan
material.
to be on your list, so I don't know anything.
Yes! I don't know how to take that. I'll say it's good and not so good. Well, it is what it is. It's exactly what it is.
I like Logan.
Okay, so Blade Runner 2049 this week had a little bit of news in Ridley Scott saying that it was too effing long. Of course, Ridley Scott. What was he on this week? Drugs. Some drug.
He's hitting that wine he was making in a good year.
Oh, that nasty wine that hadn't been cared for. I see. That makes way more sense because he said some stupid shit this week, including it was way too long. And then we know that there's a 4-hour cut of this movie that exists somewhere. We won't see it on the Blu-ray because that isn't something that's going to draw people to watch it. But the film itself, I never said to myself, I'm sitting here for 2 hours and 45 minutes. I mean, it was blowing my senses to the back of the theater with the sound and the visuals. And that's what I expected out of it. And to have a sequel coming 35 years after the original to be this interesting and science fiction wise, to make me think that much walking out of the theater, that's a sublime achievement. And Denis Villeneuve, whatever, he's French Canadian. We've talked about him so much on the show, almost to the point where it's expected that he's going to make a great movie. Every one of his films that we've talked about has been on my top of the year, except for Prisoners, and that's just because I didn't catch it that year. And I like Prisoners a lot, but it's the least of his films, in my opinion. He just directs the hell out of this one. There's no way that anyone could have possibly made a better sequel to Blade Runner. I mean, it's a Ridley Scott movie that has like way more of a cult following than it is a great movie. It is 5 times the movie that the original Blade Runner is, and I love Blade Runner, so that tells you a lot, and it deserves to be on my list as somebody that has to uphold the genre. As much money as it lost this year and whatnot, and Bob, you're usually you'd say, okay, this could have been made for this much. You didn't have to spend this much. I understand that, but man, am I so happy that they did. And I know that it's never going to happen again. Like, no one will ever make this kind of movie again. So the fact that it exists is like finding a diamond in the middle of a coal mine. You know, I love it. Actually, that's the most likely place you would find a diamond. Okay, like a diamond just laid up on the beach somewhere. Shut up, Josh. Go ahead.
I just hope he gets to keep making movies. That's all.
Oh, you're right. Well, he's making Dune.
Jesus Christ. I mean, what is he spending on that? He's such a good, talented director. Bad decisions are what are scaring me, even though it's a great movie. And Blade Runner is, in terms of blockbusters, easily my favorite of the year. Mm-hmm. But I just don't. His Arrival and Enemy and what was the other one? Sicario are such phenomenal movies. I want him to keep making those. Where are we at? 5?
Yes.
The Disaster Artist. Again, another fun week on the podcast. I read the book. I jumped down the rabbit hole as far as I could with that whole situation, and I think I'm rating the situation higher than I'm rating the movie, because I between the book and the movie, I like the book way better. But it was a fun movie. It was. I then watched The Room right after. It was a great experience. And
yeah.
Franco knocks it out of the park. Seth Rogen's hilarious. Dave Franco. It's just a perfect. The girl who played what's her name? I can't even think of the actress who played the main female.
Neither can I.
I can't think
of the character I can't even think of the character's name from The Room. But she was phenomenal in it. Lisa, yeah. The girl who played Lisa in this movie was phenomenal in this as well. It was all around just a fun time, and I don't know, Disaster Artist.
My number 5 is Get Out, Jordan Peele, and I mean, just remarkable. I mean, I had no idea he was going to be able to do that, to pull this off. I'd never seen him direct anything before. So he wrote and directed this, and it's arguably the most relevant movie of the year. And even as it came out back in February, it's remained relevant and even probably deepened just throughout the year, just through what's taken place throughout the year. And that's the mark of an incredible film, one that's going to be with us for a very long time. This is a movie that's going to be part of pop culture for a long time. With the imagery, with the hypnosis, all that stuff is going to be stuff that people talk about for years. And I can't wait to see what he does next.
My number 5 would be Wonder Woman. Obviously, I'm predisposed to like it, just like Blade Runner, but it was a movie. Again, when you make a superhero movie that is a movie first that happens to have superheroes in it, and Wonder Woman, whose costume in comics, and everything that I know is so bright and colorful and stands out from everything else on the page, and her buxomness and legs and whatnot splayed across comic pages. You notice that when you're looking at it, and then when you're watching a movie called Wonder Woman, you're watching an actress named Gal Gadot give us an incredible performance about a god, half mortal that is able to do what she does. It happened to be Wonder Woman. She was never called Wonder Woman in the movie. And again, that's the mark of like the Nolan films to me. Despite what arguments we've had on the show about those films, they're films first to me that have superheroes and villains in them. And the same applies to this one. The No Man's Land scene is my favorite scene of the year. I mean, I welled up. I felt immense pride in something I had no participatory activity in. And I felt like for just a brief moment there, like this is it. It's like a turning of the tide in a way. And that's not fair to put on Wonder Woman, because you don't need a blockbuster to tell you how strong females can be in terms of empowering your theater experience. But good God, it certainly gave a voice to it, didn't it? I mean, I wish that she would be recognized more in terms of nominated for her performance. It's so delicate, it's innocent and powerful, all in the same time. And I had such low expectations for what Zack Snyder was going to do with that character, and announcing that, and somebody from the Fast and Furious films, what? That doesn't, oh man, this is really too bad. She's blown away everyone's projections of it to the point where they led her in Justice League materials, as opposed to the household names of Superman and Batman much more than Wonder Woman. So it's just such a cinematic achievement to me.
Yeah, I can almost say I like Justice League just because of her.
Oh, sure. I mean, The Flash has a couple of moments, but yeah, she steals most of the show like she did in this one. And plus, treating a love interest with the amount of due respect that it should in Chris Pine. And for the first time, what other movie is there where the male is playing a supporting character that you care about and you want to see succeed just as much as the lead, but it's a male and she's the one that bails him out? I know that that's so trope, but boy, is it so effing important to me to have this in the limelight like it is.
Where are we at? 4?
Yeah.
Mother. I know it's not. It's an experience. It's its own thing, and I figured I'm the only one that's going to have it on a list, so it needs to be talked about because it is probably one of the most original movies of the year. Good or bad, it's just kind of an experience more than it is good or bad, I guess. And I don't know. I keep going back to that word experience. I don't even know what else to say about it. You look like you're going to say something, Josh.
Well, when you're done, yeah.
I'm struggling, though.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll jump in. I think it has the most shocking moment of anything that I've seen at the theater or at home this year, by a long margin. And,
and you guys haven't seen Raw, so
they rip a baby apart in Raw.
But then thinking about it and wondering, is this an allegory for this and this and this? Oh wait, the whole thing is an allegory, and the spirited discussion about the film that we had too. I mean, it was definitely one of those high points of the year in terms of interest in the film on this show.
It's very well directed.
Yeah,
very well directed.
And a lot of things Aronofsky does is, I don't know if I like it or not, but it was an experience.
My number 4 is The Disaster Artist. I didn't realize how much I loved this movie until I was putting this list together. I mean, my review is very praiseworthy, but when I sat down to make this list, I'm like, well, actually, I like The Disaster Artist more than that. Actually, I like The Disaster Artist more than that. And I kept doing that until it landed at number 4, and it hit up against 3 other movies that it couldn't get past. This is just the funniest movie of the year, arguably, right up there with Thor. Just so completely hysterical. And Franco's amazing in this movie. He embodies Tommy Wiseau in a way that Tommy Wiseau barely embodies Tommy Wiseau.
I feel like I've shamed myself to put it down to 5. That's,
yeah.
You know, I was like, I can't have it that high. And so I throw Mother at it. But yeah, everybody's got to see that one. If of all these movies, that was the most watchable movie on the list. Probably, I don't know. Go see The Disaster Artist, Josh.
Get Out is my number 4, and it's on all 3 of our lists. I think that it won't be the last, I think, but it's definitely the first. As I didn't see Wind River, I'm pretty positive that would have made the list. But it's just how well it lived up to the hype for me. I mean, the movie made over $100 million or so at the box office on a budget of less than 10. That's an achievement all by itself. And it could be a crappy movie and still make over $100 million. But boy, is it amazing. I mean, the scene involving, I'll just call it an auction. I didn't know it was an auction, and then once I realized it was an auction, oh no! And the hypnosis scenes, it's like the best way to visualize what might happen when you're hypnotized and that you see a door and you can't quite reach it. It reminded me of dreams that I've had, where you're standing at length from something, you can't quite get it. I felt a part of this movie a little bit, not because I can identify as an African-American man, but
it's funny you say that, though. That was Jordan Peele's point, was to make you feel like
great achievement then. And then the random moments of somebody running up on the lawn, like right in front of Daniel Kaluuya's character. And then you're thinking something just awful is going to happen, and there he goes. And you see some of the comedy sensibilities peek their heads out throughout this film.
Howery is incredible.
Oh my gosh!
Like I've compared him to arguably my favorite character of all time in any movie, Walter from The Big Lebowski. Because he's hysterical, but he's also strangely throughout the movie he turns out to be right.
Oh yeah, TSA. MFR. I mean, this is one that I'll definitely watch again as well. I plan on making this part of my collection at home. Gosh, this is the kind of thing that you would almost expect that people would exploit and make sequels out of because of how immensely successful it was. But it's a totally standalone thing that won't have that. This was an isolated incident. It's just so neat. And I'm kicking myself for not coming to it earlier, but its recency might have something to do with how high it is on my list.
I was talking before about the place in their culture, the sunken place is what they call the hypnosis, and it's hilarious. Some of my black friends on Twitter, they keep throwing that out there anytime somebody says something kind of white. Oh, okay. I see where you're at now.
Number 3, The Florida Project. And maybe it's due to the fact that I watched it like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. But it's just the level of what he was able to accomplish with those kids is ridiculous. I don't think I've ever seen kids that good. Maybe one kid here and there in a good movie with adults, but these are kids acting together, and it just, I don't know, it's the perfect movie, probably one of the most perfect movies of the year, and I just love it.
I'm right there with you. Let's see, my number 3 is Split. M. Night Shyamalan returning to form. This movie is incredible. James McAvoy, 23 different performances, 24 different performances in this movie. And that ending is just such an incredibly smart, one of the greatest troll jobs in the history of movies. I mean, just so brilliant. I just can't get enough, and I cannot wait for Glass. I've already started reading about Glass, and it doesn't come out until 2019.
Go figure. My number 3 is The Florida Project as well. I can't say possibly anything more than I already did about it, but the kids, there's no way that I can identify with that situation in this film. And it puts you in a place where you don't just imagine what poverty is like. You're living it with everyone in this film. And it's, you can start to empathize, sympathize, understand more. And that's where true understanding seems to come from, is when you see it through somebody else's eyes. And this film does such a great job of doing that in a subtle fashion. Again, directed the hell out of it. the best direction of the year. You had stated that Sean Barker deserves a nomination. Baker deserves a nomination for it. I'm with you on that. I've been thinking since you mentioned that, is there a better directed film this year? No, there's not. Not just what he did with the kids, but in shaping this entire film to where it comes out where it does. Boy, it's pretty cathartic.
There's one that probably stands out ahead for me, which I'll mention in a moment.
Yeah.
I feel like we're both. Greta Gerwig might be the best director of the year. Lady Bird is my number 2. This is the triple this year of a year of. I don't know. It's a home run in the year of triples, I guess. I don't know. This was just again another. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm assuming it's your number 2 as well.
Yeah, it's my number 2 as well.
It's just
It's a near perfect slice of life. These characters are so lived in and so real, and it just feels like watching life in progress, lives in progress. That's an incredible thing for a director, especially a first time director, to capture. She does such an incredible job. 'Cause her direction is so much more subtle than anybody else's, because her story is a lot more simple than anybody else's. But that's also what makes it stand out for me, is just how simple it is and how she makes it seem so seamless and so easy to watch, and so deeply moving. That coming out scene is remarkable. Lucas Hedges and Saoirse Ronan, just a hug. It's all you need, and she nailed it. Perfect. Just perfect. And the later scene, the airport scene, my God, it's heartrending, even if it's just so very, very simple. I love this movie.
And is how different she is from that Brooklyn movie. You know?
Yeah.
And she was phenomenal in that. And then this is like a complete 180 performance. The chemistry between her and her mom, her and her dad, her and her friends, just an all-around great movie. It's like, people I know that have a problem with American Beauty don't like the angsty teen part, the teen being like the hero and the right. In here, it's not like it's taken aside and saying the teen's always right and the mom's wrong, or the mom's right. I don't know. I just all around, it ended up being. I'm surprised it ended up being this high on my list prior to having seen it, but it certainly deserves it. And I think I said on the podcast, Laurie Metcalf's character reminded me of both my wife as a daughter and a mom, but not her mom or my daughter. So I enjoyed it for that aspect too.
Boy, really, I need to see that.
I feel like we're overhyping it for you.
It can only go down from here.
I mean, I know the principles involved, so I have a certain expectation of what it'll be already. But my number 2 is Call Me By Your Name, a film that took me. I think you said it better on the episode that we recorded it. I was trying to state that there's a certain point that I couldn't identify with what was taking place, even though it was love, because it's not something that I can experience the same way. And you stated instead that it takes you out of your element. And it does, to a point where, being away from it a little bit, I started to realize, okay, yes, this isn't my experience, but at the same time, the film tells a love story so well that I'm starting to recognize all different types of love. The Shape of Water, seeing that again kind of shapes this one a little bit, and that you start to see that seeds in people that are drawn to another aren't based solely all the time on your gender or your age to a certain extent, or, as The Shape of Water likes to tell us, your species. We're back to the erotica from Clerks 2.
Interspecies erotica.
We're going to start talking about peaches again, aren't
Yeah.
Shit. I had forgotten about that. But yeah, there are certainly some memorable scenes in this film. But on the whole, I like how this film challenged me in that Armie Hammer, I don't like him. And Armie Hammer is extraordinary in this movie. Michael Stuhlbarg is one of the best performances I've seen in any movie ever, to me. And that's high praise. I would give him Best Supporting Actor right now, and I've seen a lot of the other ones that we've talked about. As a father figure, and his parents in this movie guiding somebody's intellect and guiding somebody's maturity as opposed to guiding their own expectations for what they want out of a child. It's a challenging film in that way, and it's set in the early 80s, and there's a bit of that vibe to it as well, where you've got certain music, certain clothing and whatnot, and it's set in Italy, so there's a lot of combinations here that are definitely different from what I'm used to seeing, and they all combine for something of an ethereal experience. The film even starts and ends with credits on the screen in such a fashion where you're wondering if you're coming in halfway to the film or you're leaving and there's more to tell, for that matter. So it's just such a neat film, and I know that it's getting a lot of buzz in terms of being a popular choice for Best Picture of the Year, but I'm trying to focus on what I said as being the reason I'm putting it so high on my list.
I think the only reason I didn't have it on my list is because I really had a hard time narrowing it down to 10, and I think the one that knocked this one out was the fact that they were rich. Because there's no good reason not to have it on the list, but there's no good reason to have 5 other movies. 3 Billboards wasn't on my, it's at some point we all had to sneak something on here, and I feel bad because that one was right there too, and it was kind of this or Shape of Water, and I just decided to go with the interspecies erotica.
At least they're scholars, right? That makes it a little better instead of
and there's nothing wrong with
people.
them being rich. It was just more of that'll be my reason for not putting it.
Sure.
Number 1, The Big Sick.
Yeah, it was the same.
I've seen it multiple times now, and I don't know, from the beginning, watching it for the first time and being surprised at it being that good. This isn't like 40-Year-Old Virgin or Knocked Up where it's like, oh, that's pretty good. This is like this. I'm disappointed that it's not getting more love. It's kind of my Gone Girl this year, and I don't know. It's so perfect. The chemistry between everybody is amazing. It's been a good year for chemistry. I think I said that a lot this episode. But they were juggling 4 or 5 different arcs, and they knocked them all out. And that not a lot of movies do it. 3 Billboards did that pretty good too, but this one did it the best, I thought.
Absolutely, I completely agree. It's my number 1 as well, and Kumail Nanjiani is perfect for this. I mean, obviously it's his story, but I mean, his presence is perfect for this. The way that Showalter captures his presence is perfect, and I certainly didn't expect this from Michael Showalter, who's a director who's kind of more reliant on tics, kind of reliant on a weird vibe that he's got in his movies, and he really surprised me by directing this. Not without quirks. He's certainly got some of his kind of humor in there, but it's much more accessible than his other stuff, like The Baxter or that Sally Field movie from last year, which were movies that are kind of based more on a weird vibe and sort of that comedy of the awkward pause. This doesn't have any of that. It's got some of that, but it's much more smarter than most of those movies. This is the most fun I had watching a movie all year. And on top of being so romantic and deeply moving, it was the most fun I've had watching anything all year. Kumail and Emily are wonderful together, but then you take Kumail and put him with Ray Romano, and it's amazing. And then you put him and Ray Romano and Holly Hunter together, and then there's that moment between Kumail and Holly Hunter in the hallway. It's just so perfectly lovely.
Him and his parents too. That whole. Just the whole, I don't know. It is such a great movie, and if it gets, I would love to at least let them win a script award or something like that. Because if nothing else, give them that because it's that good of a movie.
Yeah, I love this movie.
I'll only add that I take solace in being once again the diversion from having a unanimous number 1 on the show, just like last year with Arrival. In this case, yes, I came to it much later than you guys had, but I feel like I would have felt the same way.
I think you would have too.
Seeing it back in June or July when it was available to watch in the theater. So I take some solace in that and not agreeing with it being the best film of the year. By no means is it a bad movie, though. It's not in my top 10. I wrote it down
not
as
in my top 20, not in my top 30.
No, based on what we've got here, yeah, we're talking top 15.
Oh, really?
Okay, I would say at 15. That speaks
cool.
to I haven't seen a lot of great movies this year, but also it is a good movie. Holly Hunter is the best part of it for me. It's grounded in such a way that you wouldn't necessarily expect from how the film markets itself as more of a comedy. I had some problems with how the characters interacted, and that's not the characters. It happened, so it's not their fault. So, I mean, I've come back down from where I was angry at the film and wanted to turn it off. That's what it did affected me personally. Okay, that's not the film's fault. It's still a good film, and it is challenging. So I take solace in knowing that I didn't hate your number one selection by any means. It's a very good movie. See it.
What's your number one?
My number one is The Disaster Artist. Okay. Now, I have some splaining to do.
You just caught me way off guard.
Wait a minute.
There's nothing
James
else
Franco
that's too obvious.
starred in your number one movie of the year?
And he directed it.
Naked at one point.
So none of this should be right. This is the anomaly of anomalies. But that's what the movie. It's not just a spoof. It has a bit of a heart to it, in a quirky heart at that, in which it examines this as a Hollywood story. In essence, it's the classic Hollywood story of somebody having a hope and a dream and wanting to make something happen, but they're so odd that X, Y, and Z happen. And I mean, I watched this movie with you guys. You saw me laughing out loud a couple of times. You saw me enjoying it and immediately on the show, immediately expressing delight. It's because it's wonderful. I mean, this is the funniest movie of the year to me. It's not just because Tommy Wiseau is quirky, okay? It's James Franco's iteration of Tommy Wiseau is not. It's off in such a way where he's playing him, but there's a distance from it that it's like, I can see what you're doing there. You're making him look both lovable and quirky and horrific somehow all at once. And so they got the right tone with this. And especially knowing that this is something of a labor of love with Franco and Rogen and Franco's brother. Knowing all of that and knowing that The Room is such a terrible, terrible movie that something possibly positive could come from that other than being put through the room, not that I had to be put through the room, but you know what I'm saying. It's not a good movie. Yeah. It's something that you laugh at, okay? This is a telling of that in such a way that it's like, boy, if The Room would have just been this kind of feeling, then I would watch it all the time. I'm shocked that it's my number one movie of the year, but I kept looking at this saying, all right, Wonder Woman is amazing, but I think that I must admit The Disaster Artist is a more accomplished film, Do I think I'll watch Wonder Woman more? Of course I will. I mean, that's no doubt.
But this is definitely a watchable, rewatch movie.
Absolutely. And its comedy level, to me, is up there with comedies that I would watch all the time, like Anchorman, Borat, Naked Gun, Monty Python, that kind of off-putting humor that just makes you shake your head a little bit and how inane it is. This is a kind of modern inanity that I'm enjoying the shit out of. And so let it be known that not just for the sake of being shocky, having a shock value to it, but it's James Franco, my number one choice.
It makes me feel better because, like I said with Sean's, it's at number 5 on my list simply out of shame because I feel like doesn't deserve to be higher on my list because no one's going to treat me properly honestly, it'd probably be my number 3 if I was to really do it without throwing Mother and the Florida Project in there. But
and you had more investment in it too. You reading the book and knowing more of the story. I bet you I would have enjoyed it way more had I read everything. And
what they did in the movie so well was they cut out a lot of the book, but he would just say a line that summed up a chapter. So I would definitely go back and read the book though, because it is a fun read on top of the movie. They just go hand in hand.
What's amazing about this movie is that it's so interesting because you could just point and laugh at it. That's the thing is that a lot of people might have made a version of this where it's just pointing and laughing at Tommy Wiseau, and that's not what this movie is. This movie captures what people actually genuinely enjoy about The Room, which is they know it's not good, but they enjoy watching it so much, and they found something of value in it in the strangest possible way, and that's what this movie captures, is that strange feeling you have of bonding with so many other people over something this bizarre. And it like I said in my written review, that this is it's gone from being pathos to something beyond being pathetic. It began as something pathetic and has become something else.
Yeah. So, I mean, how would you overall rank the year, Josh? Good year,
Overall,
bad year?
there's a lot of really good things, but there's, like I had stated, there's no home run. The Disaster Artist, I see home runs as like, man, I'm going to remember this for years. You know, La La Land last year, like I find myself humming the soundtrack, you know, every other week or whatnot. I mean, I have the soundtrack, so that makes it much easier to do, but
and I'm listening to it when I do it too. Sorry.
that's okay. But with other number ones throughout the time we've done this show, I've tried to think, is this something that is a home run? Most of them are. The Disaster Artist isn't like that, oh, for sure. You know, I've held on to it for months as the number one film of the year. It kind of just came to me in the making of this list, and therefore it's a good year. It's just not a great year. I feel like if I see Wind River, Lady Bird, maybe The Post, I don't know. My list might be a little more challenged than what it is.
I'm definitely interested in your opinion on Lady Bird. So when you do eventually do see that, we'll have to bring that back on the
Try
show.
and forget what we said about it.
He dies.
I do as soon as I walk out of this place. That's not true. I take your words to bed.
Well, I do the same. I think Sean probably does it the least because he sees the movies before we do.
Yeah.
But I definitely do remember stuff, and it does affect. You know, sometimes I end up liking something more because Sean didn't like it or something. He lowered that bar.
So Josh, based on, you've been kind of keeping a math here, what is the Disaster Artist our show movie?
Based on the number 5, number 4, and number 1 ranks, and the fact that Florida Project is 3, 3, and 6, it's
kind of a draw between those two.
Even between Disaster Artist and
If we
Florida
were giving
Project.
a show-wide Best Picture, it would be Disaster Artist and Florida Project.
Yeah, and I think it's mainly because I haven't seen Lady Bird, and in my opinion, The Big Sick is different. So,
Yeah. What do you think of the year, Sean? Good year? Okay year?
It was a really crappy year. I think my top 3 movies are movies that I'll watch forever. Split, Lady Bird, and Big Sick are masterpieces. The top 10 movies were pretty easy to put together for me. Then there was 5 or 6, maybe 7 more. But I saw 350 movies this year.
oh man,
Woo! So I saw a lot of crap, and the crap really was like, there's a lot of standout crap like Blind or The Dark Tower, just some really standout crap, like crap that I'm going to remember for a very long time. The Bye Bye Man, Sleepless, I'll never forget that horrific experience. So a lot of the really bad stuff from this year really stands out, even more than the really great stuff.
What about A24? They made a lot of appearances on our list. I know there was a movie, Free Fire, you didn't actually like.
I hate Free Fire, yeah.
Although I would call it a 3-star out of 5 for me.
is Wind River an A24 movie?
I
don't
remember.
so.
Okay, I can see it comes at night. The Disaster Artist,
Florida Project,
Florida Project, Lady Bird, and I think that's gonna do it.
Comes at night,
It comes
I
at
don't know.
night, yeah.
Comes at night. Yeah, I have. That's part of the 4.
So yeah,
This is, Free Fire is the first time I've hated anything that they've done. Well, no, Ghost Story. Sorry, Ghost
That
Story
is
also
pretty
hated
shitty.
I haven't seen Ghost Story, but I will defend Free Fire.
And Good Time, I was disappointed by as well. It baffles me. I'm watching all these critics lists now, and everybody has Ghost Story and Good Time on there, and I'm just kind of like, what am I not seeing in these movies? I don't get it.
I didn't hate Good Time.
I don't hate it, but I don't think
I
it's
would just
great.
kind of. It just existed.
Yeah.
More or less.
It never rose above what it was. So it's just good. It's
But
all right.
I would. It might be I mean, they had Lady Bird, and I mean, their best movies this year might be the best movies they've had, period.
True.
I don't know. I mean, Lady Bird could come away with some Oscars. Who knows?
Well, they've got my number one film, so there you have it.
And
Right?
yeah. I'd like to see them get an Oscar or two as well.
That would be nice.
Anything else before we wrap it up for the year?
Well, should we wrap up 87 real quick?
Yeah,
or?
let's wrap up 87. Why not?
Go ahead, Josh. I didn't make a top 10. I'll just comment off of yours. I've got a top 2.
Oh, that's cool. Moonstruck is one of them, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll try and guess the other one by the time I'm done talking. Okay, so the goal was to seriously watch everything from 1987 this year, and that came to a screeching halt pretty early. I was doing well like the first few weeks, and I was seeing this random crap like Wisdom with Emilio Estevez, and it just fell right off. Overall, 1987 is a bag of crap. There's a lot of... I don't want to say Rambo type movies, but because there's no Rambo this year.
Yeah, it's like Schwarzenegger type movies.
Well, okay. I've got an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie in my top 10 from 1987, so I really shouldn't be. Maybe I should just stop talking. But then there's some like hidden gems that I hadn't seen before, like Near Dark, which is just incredible, and River's Edge, which I found to be pretty immensely fantastic, and Moonstruck. I did get to Moonstruck, and it is just as good as you're saying. Maybe not the top of my list, but still. I had number 10 is Overboard. I put it at number 10 so that nobody would get too angry with me. Number 9 is Predator, the best action movie of all time. Number 8, River's Edge. Number 7.
It was definitely
Die Hard.
It was a year of Predators for sure.
Ooh.
Hi-yo.
Thanks. Ooh. 7 is Moonstruck. 6 is Raising Arizona, and those two are like pretty interchangeable to me, in which you've got neurotic and lovable leading ladies, and it could go either way, but the Coen brothers raised it slightly up for me. 5, Full Metal Jacket. 4, Lethal Weapon. Up this high because of how much I would watch that more than anything on this list, even Overboard or Predator. 3, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Sorry, I know, but I mean, its recency has got me confirming my thoughts. 2 is Near Dark. I think it's that great. And number 1 is Broadcast News for me. And I can't figure out what your number 2 is.
Full Metal Jacket.
Okay.
Full Metal Jacket, yeah.
Yeah.
Broadcast News would be up there.
Evil Dead 2.
Oh, no, terrible.
Yes, absolutely.
There is some random gems that I did discover, like Prince
Over
of
the
Darkness. Okay, that's what I meant by the Rambo stuff.
Fuck you! You had Predator on your list.
Well, okay, but we talked about like
Rambo
Over the Top. Is
Rambo
a piece
wasn't
of
arm
garbage.
wrestling,
Over the Top sucks, but I love it.
but Rambo doesn't suck.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
But like First Blood Part 2,
First
I
Blood
love
Part 2
it.
was
but
amazing.
I love it, but it's terrible.
No, it's not terrible. It is a fun action movie. It is Lethal Weapon. It is Predator. It is Terminator. It is
The
all
First
those
Blood
things.
Part 2 conversation is 2.5 years old, unfortunately. So I can't.
Because there's a kind of a little flaw, a little string to pull on your list here.
You mean my favorites list?
When you said Predator is the greatest action movie of all time, then you ranked Lethal Weapon ahead of it.
Yes. It's not an action movie. It's a comedy.
Different reasons.
It's an action comedy.
I have the criteria
Okay.
that go with it. Anyways, like Walter Hill's Extreme Prejudice made it in here, made me really get into Walter Hill this year, and then I watched this Sigourney Weaver movie and overdone with that. Revisiting some things like Monster Squad was a lot of fun, honestly. Baby Boom was fun for me.
Adventures in Babysitting.
Adventures in Babysitting was fun to revisit.
I forgot about Dirty Dancing. That was this year, right?
Dirty Dancing was this year. And
Yeah, that would be up there, actually, in my top 5.
And Bob discovered Dirty Dancing and wasn't that crazy about it. Nope. But it's not a great year. 1988, as I made out the list for that, I think
It's up
in
too,
for.
in case anybody thought. It's on our website.
Well, I was scrolling and it's under the 87 list.
It's not. Your website will have to refresh eventually.
Okay, no problem. But
It took me a while to get to.
it's in the same format as the 87 list. Better
Yeah.
if you're on an actual computer to look at. But it looks like it's going to be, unless we discover things, a little rougher than 87.
It's going to be a long year of 88 stuff.
Action Jackson.
What's wrong with action checks?
I don't know. I'm going to find out. But
It's got the co-star
Have
Predator.
you been able to find Cop,
Cop.
the first movie of the year with James Woods? Or did you miss that on your list? I saw it.
I might have it on the list. I just don't necessarily remember.
I was looking at the Wikipedia list, and it had that one as the only movie next week.
I went off of the numbers.
Okay.
And the first movie that I have
I stay away from their
starts
list
January 15th.
Because everything they have is like all jumbled up at the top.
It is,
So I
but
went
if
to the Wikipedia list and found Cop.
If you go to IMDb and you type in that in, it'll give you the U.S. release date for all those. And so I took that huge list and put them in their correct places. Luckily, I'm good at copy and paste.
I cannot find the movie Cop, so I don't know if anybody's going to get to see that or not.
Well, we're skipping a James Woods movie.
Oh, no. How horrible.
We should ban him from the podcast. Anything else on 87 or this year? Or what was going to be last year by the time a lot of you hear this? Otherwise, I guess that can be the year. We'll see you next year.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best three friends that anybody could have. I mean, the three best friends